Welcome to my course, Game Development Basics, Week 7, Lesson 3, Branches, Commits, and Merges. In this lesson, we'll define branches, commits, and merges. We'll describe the process of creating a branch using GitHub Desktop. We'll describe the process of creating a commit using GitHub Desktop. We'll describe the process of merging changes from one branch to another, and then we'll describe merge conflicts and demonstrate resolution methods. And I know we already went over this in week 1, but I just wanted to do a quick review. So a branch is a version of the repository. And if we think about it as a literal branch on a tree, it could be branching out from the trunk or the main branch or from another branch. A commit is a snapshot of the hierarchy and files in a repository within a branch. And a merge is combining changes from one branch to another. And this diagram down at the bottom gives you a little bit of an understanding of this. So the lines represent the branches or the different versions of the repository. The circles represent the commits. So each of these is a commit on each branch. And then a merge is when the branches merge back into each other, or in this case, merge back into the main branch. Let's start by showing how to create a branch using GitHub Desktop. So here I am in my ball maze game repository that we made in lesson 2. And we'll notice up here at the top that there is something that says current branch. And if we drop that down, we'll notice that for now, there's only one branch, and that's the main branch. Now, if you're working on the project yourself, you may only ever need one branch, but in most cases, you're going to want multiple branches in your project. And it's also good form to only commit things to the main branch once they're stable. So in most cases, everyone is going to want to have their own branch that they work in, or even multiple branches if they're working on multiple things. And then when those features are stable and working, you'll merge them back into the main branch. So let's create a new branch. And to do this, we drop down, and then up here, we could see that there's a button that says new branch. And we can name our branch whatever we want. Now, on teams that I've worked on, it's common to name this based upon the feature that you're working on, or to have this be the name of the person working on the feature. It really just depends on your team structure, but I like to put what I'm working on, and that way I can remember if I ever need to go back and find that branch where the files were changed. So this is a game we made in week 1 when we didn't know a lot about Unreal Engine, so I do know that for right now it doesn't have a main menu. So I could call this main menu, and this would let everyone know that I'm working on the main menu in this branch. So I'll say create branch, and now this branch exists on my local repository, but it doesn't yet exist on the remote, so no one else can see it. So again, the last thing I need to do is publish my branch. And now here in my remote repository, I could see that there are now 2 branches. When I select this, I could see that there's the default branch, which is main, but I can also see main menu. And you would also be able to see anyone else's branches to see what they're working on. The next thing I want to do is create a commit. Now we already did this in the last lesson, but I just want to go over this again because I think it's really important that you understand the process of creating good commits. So here I am in my ball maze game, and I've just created a main menu. I won't go over the details here. It's nothing new. It's things that we've done multiple times in this course so far. And when we press start game, it drops us into level 1. So nothing new here. It's all pretty much the same. I did create a few new files, and I made some changes to the project. And now I want to be able to share those changes with everyone else. And if we go back to GitHub Desktop, we can see those changes here. So we can see a list of everything that I changed in the game. So I changed the default engine file, and you could see a list of those changes here because this is actually a text file .ini, so we could actually see those changes. I also changed BP game mode, and then I added 4 new files: main menu camera, which is a pawn that I'm using in the main menu game mode, so I have a new game mode just for the main menu, a new map called main menu, and then a main menu widget. So nothing new. These are all things that we've done before, but you can see here in GitHub Desktop that I could see a list of everything that I've changed. Now, let's say that there's one of these things that I don't want to be made public to everyone yet because maybe I don't have it quite ready. I can deselect those files that I don't want everyone else to see. But in this case, I do want all of these changes to be sent to the remote repository so everyone else can see the progress. And notice that I'm still in my main menu branch. This is really important that you are always checking what branch you're working in to make sure that you're not making commits to someone else's branches or to a branch like the main branch where people don't want changes to be made directly. When I'm ready to submit all these changes, I can create a commit. And so every commit requires a summary. So I'm just going to say added main menu assets. And then in the description, I can also say that I changed the default level to main menu, just as an added level of information. When I'm ready, I'll say commit to main menu. And then when that's done, I'll say push origin. And now on GitHub Desktop, if I change the branch to main menu, I can see those assets that I created in that last commit. But these changes currently only exist on the main menu branch. And it's also giving me a little note of that here. This branch is one commit ahead of main, which means there are changes here that don't exist on our main branch. And when we first go to GitHub, we also see that here main menu had recent pushes, and it's asking me to do a pull request. So let's talk about how to merge changes from one branch into another using GitHub. And as far as I'm aware, you can't actually do this through the GitHub desktop app. You have to do this directly on github.com. There are other ways to do this, but I found that usually this is the simplest way. It's just to manage it through github.com. And here it's giving us a little hint that we may want to do this. We can select this, but I would like to go to pull requests and then say new pull request. In this screen, it's asking us to compare changes from one branch to the other. So let's leave the base as main and we'll change this to main menu. And now we can see all the changes between main menu to main. So if we were to merge this, all of these changes are then going to be added to our main branch. And we can see that there's one commit, which it tells us that here, added main menu assets. There's 6 files changed, and there's 1 contributor. It's good practice just to review all of this to make sure that nothing looks out of sorts. And also that there's this little check mark here that says able to merge, which means that there's no issues between the two branches. So I'll just say create pull request. Again, it gives you an option to add a title and a description to this pull request. So if you wanted to add some additional clarity, maybe there's multiple commits in this merge and you want to just summarize all of them in one message, you can change this here. When you're ready, you'll say create pull request. And depending on how you have your repository set up, this information may not be available to you. Some people like to lock merge requests down so that it only can be done by someone that has a higher privilege. And this is just to prevent merge conflicts that are unnecessary or to prevent changes to the main branch that aren't approved. In this case, we haven't set up any of those restrictions and we are the owner of the repository. So it's going to let us just go ahead and push it through. So we can say merge pull request and then confirm merge. Now, if we go back here and now we're in our main branch, we'll be able to see that all of those assets exist in the main branch, which means the changes from main menu have been merged into our main branch. Now there is one more step, and that's that in our local repository, we now need to pull back down those changes into our local repository. So if we fetch again, and then we go to history, and we're in the main branch and we compare to main, we can see that we're behind 1 commit and ahead 0. And we can see that we did that merge pull request. So it says that now those changes exist on the remote repository, but they don't exist on our local repository. So we'll just go down to the bottom and we'll create merge commit and then push. And then now we can see that when we're comparing main menu branch to main branch, we have behind 0 and ahead 0, which means that our repository is exactly the same as the remote repository. And I recommend that you do this at the beginning of every work session just to make sure that you have the most current version of the repository and all the changes that have been made by other people before you start work, because this can cause a merge conflict. And at some point when you're making games with a team, you may eventually encounter a merge conflict. In every project that I've ever worked on, this happens at least once, if not multiple times. So it's fairly common. However, it's good practice to try to communicate to mitigate these happening as much as possible. And this is that when we're trying to merge branches, you can encounter an issue where one or more branches have changed the same file. So if two people are working on the same thing and they both try to do their merge, then it's going to result in a conflict where GitHub is saying this change has happened two different ways on two different branches, and it's going to throw up a conflict. And one thing to be aware of, and why you want to try to mitigate this as much as possible, is that when this happens, one person's changes are going to be kept and the other person's changes are more than likely going to be lost. And here I am in my GitHub, and I made a commit to my main menu branch where I updated my camera actor. I made a little adjustment to it. And when I go to merge into my main branch, it's saying I can't automatically merge. So when I go to create pull request and I get to this screen, it's going to say this branch has conflicts that must be resolved. And it's not even letting me go any further. It's giving me some instructions that I need to use GitHub Desktop or command line instructions. And if we click this, it'll give us some instructions on how to do this, or we can go through GitHub Desktop. So essentially what's happening is it's making us choose which file we want to keep. So here in GitHub Desktop, it's saying I need to resolve the conflicts, and I can select View Conflicts. And it's showing me that the BP camera was changed on both branches. And if I select Resolve, it's going to say use the modified file from main menu or use the modified file from main. And it's at this point that you have to make the choice on which file you want to keep. This may require some communication between your team to say who changed what. Maybe someone spent an hour of work and someone spent 20 hours of work, and the hour of work could easily be redone. Or maybe the feature that was created on one branch isn't as important. It was just a minor tweak that can be redone very quickly. So you're going to need to communicate with your team and try to figure out which one of these is the best one to keep. Now I know, because I made both changes, that I want to keep the changes from main menu, and everything's going to go green and it's going to say we're ready and we can continue merge. And now when I go back to github.com, it'll give me the authority to do that merge, and now everything should be good. So when I do a refresh in GitHub Desktop, I could see that I'm behind 1 and ahead 0 on my main menu branch, and I'll just do a quick merge and push, and now we can see behind 0, ahead 0, which is what we want before we start the next day's work. And when we were trying to resolve that merge conflict, you may remember that it was telling us to do some command line prompts, which is something we haven't really discussed yet, but we are going to be discussing it in the next lesson. So I'll see you there.